Welcome to PowerUp podcast, the podcast that seeks to empower and dismantle, giving us the power and confidence to question, deconstruct, rebuild, and expand in life. I'm your host, Amma Rouge, voiceover and multidisciplinary artist, well-being advocate, food and book geek with over 14 years of movement-centered experience.
I am your host, Ella Mesma, artist, choreographer, yogi and coach with a passion for alchemy, creativity, transformation and workplace wellness.
We recognise that we can't dismantle and empower or be empowered without first learning ourselves, diving deeper to unlearn the harmful, restrictive and unprogressive. It's an ongoing practice and journey for us all, which is why we created this podcast.
Our show features guests doing the work to enlighten, deconstruct and power up in their own magical ways.
We're going to be having conversations around the power of healing, transformation, well-being and creativity, and how they feed our personal and collective evolution, how they help us power up.
Today we are joined by the superhuman that is Mara Livermore. Mara is the creator of House of SweetWaters, which offers coaching, healing and consultancy services designed to change the business landscape by empowering future-focused people to build satisfying, profitable and conscious businesses. Mara's pronouns are she, her, and she is a student and devotee of the water deities delivered to her through her ancestors. And she specialises in elevating the sacred energy of Black and Afro Diasporic people. In her academic work, she is writing on African traditional religions in anti-slavery resistance, and you'll often find her dancing, studying, and looking beyond the veil to receive high-frequency insight for herself and her clients.
Literally, the geek in me is overly gassed and hyped at that whole bio, your whole bio, Mara.
Oh,
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's really nice to be here. And bio writing is definitely a process. And
Isn't it?
so it's nice to finally be in a place with it where I'm like, yeah, I get that. I get that. Yeah, it's me. I wrote that mostly.
And I just want to spend a day following you and just learning more, because there is so much wisdom in that bio and there is such a wealth of
knowledge, magic,
power,
all those
insight,
things. Intrigue. Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah, beauty. It's delicious.
Also present in this space right now, because we can see one another, listeners.
Yeah, exactly.
And on that note, Mara, we would love to know, what is your superpower?
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the question. I have to admit, I struggled a little bit to think of something or to try and think of the right thing. But when I let go of, treating it like a test, whether something I have to get correct, I definitely say that my superpower I probably use the most is creating spaces for clarity and insight. And so especially in community or in spaces with other people, other bodies, my superpower is being able to kind of pour something in the mix that makes it all go. And kind of like when you put oil in water or water in oil and then the little balls clump. Or in coffee.
I was watching that this morning.
I don't know what the name for it would be, but being able to enter a space and kind of bring the energy that makes people go from, be able to see the wood for the trees and the trees for the wood and the soil from the sky and everything in between. I'm also a bit of a gas machine as well. Like if I'm in conversation with you, I'm very good at seeing and speaking to people's gifts. And I don't think it happens enough in this world. I'm really passionate about it. I don't think people spend enough time hearing that they're really awesome at something, or that their passions are valid and that their feelings are valid, and that the way that they show up in the world is valid and also pretty awesome. Like, it's no
Yeah.
mean feat. Like, even on your worst day, to like get up and go out and exist in this world where, you know, sometimes you might have to take like 3 or 4 different transport options where you pass like thousands of people but don't speak to any of them. Like, that is a wild way to start a day. And so if
Yeah.
you've managed to do that and got somewhere, and you've also fed and watered yourself, and maybe other people, like other humans as well, because especially like parents can be really hard on themselves. I just really feel like more people need, I'm just giving people their props.
So agree. Celebrating the
yeah.
miracles of just being alive. Yeah.
Exactly.
Said with so much truth and eloquence as well. Spot on.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
Mara and I met on a project called The Heroines. And actually, that's not how we met, is it? I've just realised we met via Andre Bright.
True. Yes.
But
yes.
we really got to know each other on a project called The Heroines, and by a woman called Chennai Atale. And what I really, you know, that was where I was like, Mara, you're a superhuman. Like, it was incredible. And, you know, I often would be like, actually, I'm not going to go if Mara's not going. Because it was just so wonderful to have your presence, and like, you know, you are a leader, you very much are a leader, but you come with such love, and exactly what you said, you know, this ability to reflect other people's superpowers to them, but also to hold space for what's true, and to kind of really feels like you really understand justice and what's okay and what's not okay. And it was just an absolute joy to kind of see you and get to know you over that process.
Oh, like, you can't see this, but I'm like, my already normal grin has gotten bigger, and I definitely feel very warm. No, thank you so much for that. That's really kind. It was a beautiful, really interesting experience, and obviously the other people who we met and connected with on there have just been, you know, lots of very full divine beings going about their work in the world. But I think also one of the things that we aren't always encouraged to do is to like tap out. And you can be doing something that's amazing, but like, you might need a day, right? And I think this is showing up a lot in the work from home story. And this whole, you know, like, and actually it's showing up constantly, like daily, depending on what's going on in the world outside today. And it's like, you know, just the kind of the moving hurdles. You know, one day it's go to work, the next day it's stay home. Now it's, can you even get to work because there's no petrol? Like, and so people are constantly being re-put in that position to be like, actually, can I do this? Can I get out? Rather than just having to assume that they have to, no, I'll get up at 6 because that will help me get to the petrol station earlier, and this, that, and the other. And so I think one area where it's definitely been a gift is being able to be like, you know what, no, I need to do this. If it's going to happen, it has to be from bed today. If it's going to happen, it has to be with chocolate today. If it's going to happen, it can happen at this time and not another time. And we aren't taught, we're not often given a lot of space. Well, the world is not set up to give us space to approach things in that way. So I find a lot of people working very hard to try and meet hurdles at their highest or their hardest, rather than being like, okay, well, how can we make this meet you in the middle? And it's really interesting because I help people do business, start businesses, grow businesses, scale businesses. So especially new people who are new to thinking about themselves as business people, or people who are maybe switching from a working day for someone else in a job to their own thing. I've had someone genuinely be concerned because they're like, well, Mara, I get up at 6, I'm in work by 8, and I don't leave till 8. Like, if I don't have a desk to go to and someone who's waiting for me, how will I be able to continue that routine? And I'm like, ding, 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 ding. You're not meant to.
Right.
You don't have to. You can stay in bed if you want to. That's how it works. And they're like, oh, okay, but will I get enough done? And I'm like, you get to decide what's enough. Like, and working backwards from those kinds of things. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that is actually another superpower, is discerning, being able to discern what is right for you. And, you know, is my cup full up? And that actually, I think that will transform or create those good ripples of for other people as well. But, you know, how your business is run and how you are kind of creatively inspired and so on within your business, if you are actually looking after your own well-being first.
Yeah, it's really important. It's really important.
And how did you, because I know I want to know, so I'm sure that the listeners are also thinking the same. How did you arrive at a place where, one, you were able to recognize them, and actually, two, you were able to, I was going to say wield them, but that makes them sound like a weapon, which they're not. But, you know, how did you, I guess, share them with the world?
That's a really, really, really good question, because I think the work of recognizing your superpowers and wielding them is constant. Is constant, and I wouldn't say. Or one of the things that I was hesitant about was coming across like, oh, I've nailed these, and these are 100% of the time, because there's definitely times when I'm blindsided by stuff. And as someone who deals in providing clarity to people and on the strategy side, you know, and being able to see things that others can't see, to be blindsided by things and people and stuff is a bit like, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't be experiencing that. Maybe I should have been ahead of that.
Well, first and foremost, side note, you're human.
Yeah.
So let's just remind everyone of that.
Yeah.
Having a human experience.
Yeah.
So for sure that can happen.
Yeah. And also it's is realizing that it's like you could be very physical, but it's different if you're climbing mountains than if you're cycling really far. And so there's a constant work of learning to, like, no 2 days are the same. So you're dealing with like a whole 24 hours of new stuff each time. So it doesn't matter if the muscle's really strong. Actually, like, you know, you'll get a new ball every now and again, and you'll be like, oh, what's this? And and yeah, it's not like
God, shout out for the wisdom.
it's not a measure of like pass or failure, but really just a sign that you're still alive. So that's it. And I think also leaping in head first. And so we were talking earlier about, you know, some of the projects that leaning into things, even if you're not 100% sure that you've got all the answers, and knowing that you can do the work. And I think being quite process driven enabled me to see, okay, well, even if this is somewhere I want to be, these are the things I'll need to do to get there. And really in every version of that, there's always a point where you have to just jump.
Yes,
and
so true.
It's not always my favorite thing to do, to be honest.
Second that.
Yeah. I have my background, one of them anyways, in like tech operations. In fact, but all of my backgrounds, so hospitality, working in operations and tech. I've been an air hostess, I've worked at a modeling agency. The skill that I was using repeatedly teaching is this kind of the organization and the ability to prepare. Like, you get on a plane, from the second you get on a plane, you're just, and as crew, you're preparing for the next step. So you're doing the security check so that people can board, then you're boarding people, and then as soon as you get to a certain point in boarding, you're thinking about, this is Emirates, so it's hot towels or bar snacks or whatever's coming next. And there's a lot to do, where it's like, actually there's all these different things that you can do to make it easier, whether that's rearranging containers in the galley so that you know which ones you can access first, or starting to like put meals out in things. There's just so much of that. So but in life there's a little bit of that, but it's a security thing to feel like there's a lot of it. And actually in ritual space, the idea is that you prepare and then you let the magic happen, right? And I think that's kind of like I know I'm speaking to people with some dance background, so maybe I'll be butchering this, but it's, from what I understand, it's maybe similar a bit to choreography, in that you can set the steps and the moves, but then there's that flair, the way that people approach it, that kind of adds a layer to it that you can't really, you can create space for, but you can't plan for.
Love that.
And so I think allowing a bit of freedom to the movements of my day and life has helped, and trusting myself more to show up and know that I'm ready and I've got what I need and that I'm not there by accident is part of the work as well.
And I would love to ask, again, maybe listeners are also interested, like, how did you get to that point to have that confidence in yourself? Do you work with, were there kind of people that you worked with, or like, how did you arrive at that place?
That's a good question. Are you ever at that place is the other question. I think it's doing a lot of things feeling scared. I remember the first Ritual Excel event, which is for Black and Afro Diasporic people, and it's like a coaching, therapeutic adjacent space set up by me, and I run it with an elder. And when I was setting up the first one of that, all based in like African traditional wisdom and stuff, so we use the Bakongo cosmogram as like the principle through the workshop. And the first message that I sent, where I was like, okay, I think I've met this person who's amazing and I think we should all be in a room with them and see what happens. I wrote it out and I really had to close my eyes and press send.
I love that.
And practice and breaking it down and taking it bit by bit and knowing that, really focusing on what's in front of you at that time.
I love that.
Which is actually, it's really, if you're thinking about, I've got to run this whole event, that's a lot of things. But actually, if you're like, what's the next? Actually, I've just got to invite people. Actually, I've just got to figure out what time it is. I've just got to figure out where it is. Then you can still feel nervous the whole time, but just doing those bits step by step.
Beautiful.
And then eventually you get less nervous. And also surrounding yourself with good people who can reflect back to you. And giving yourself the time to reflect back on things too, because especially the multitasking kind of creative people or ambitious people, energetic people that I know will barrel through like 9 things and then hit maybe something that's a bit more difficult and be focusing on that, and there's been no space to reflect on the fact that they've just smashed 9 amazing things out the park.
Right.
So having good people around who are like, hey Mara, you realize you just done this really whole awesome thing, like it's okay to see this next bit as like a new cycle that's got its challenges, because you've just completed a whole cycle, and that helps me feel more confident as well when I remember to do that.
So Mara, you're creating amazing impact in the world. Like even Ritual Excel, what you're doing with that project, it's, it is having an incredible impact.
Yeah, thank you. It is actually going to be coming back soon. Last time it ran in a format where there's 6 parts across the better part of a year, and it starts with self-love, family, community, intimacy, so dating and relationships, economics and work. And each time the approaches, we situate ourselves on the Bakongo cosmogram, the Dikenga, which is the 4 moments of the sun, and you move through birth, life, death, and rebirth.
Wow.
And so in self-love, for example, you might be, really fully living some great practices, or you might be really integrating some new stories, and that will place where you are in that wheel. And then the workshop kind of opens up then to help us all like gain insight and move forward. And there's going to be more events.
I'm coming.
There's going to be more events on that vein coming out soon. So really good to see
Amazing.
some of you there.
Amazing.
So, Mara, I know that you specialise in elevating the sacred energy of Black and Afro Diasporic people. And I'd love to know with that in mind, what do you want for the world?
So before you said with that in mind, so in general, I just think the world is a much better place when people have their own identities more fully acknowledged. And
Yes.
specifically, these are people's innate kind of joys, innate experiences that they want to seek out, innate relationships that they want to have, because I think from what I see, people who are really rooted in their confidence and self-love and peace, and they wake up knowing that they wake up sure about who they want to be that day, even if that's not their fully most realized self, but they're like, today I'm going to be the version of me that is confident. Today I'm going to be the version of me that believes in myself, that is kind or whatever. These people, there's just less time to be pressed about stuff that isn't worth being pressed about. And there's less time to hate on other people. There's less time to be afraid of other people. There's less time there's more energy to care for yourself and the others around you in the world. And I think that's really important, because there's only so much you can do once you get to a place where people are quite ideologically committed to, a world where there has to be cars, or a world where there has to be certain borders, or a world where there has to be certain things. Then I think those things become a proxy for parts of people's identity that there doesn't have to be a proxy for. And then all of a sudden you can't, the space to have a conversation about what the world would look like beyond those things is very difficult, because actually, how can you have a conversation with someone about taking away something or having something different that's basically their arm, right?
Yeah.
And so for the world, I would love for everyone to have less proxies, I guess, and more parts of themselves.
I love that.
I love that.
And especially for Black and Afro diasporic people, it was really interesting at an event that I was at yesterday, a book launch for a new Black Joy book that's coming out. And we had talking points that we discussed in small groups. And one of them was Black Joy is changing the narrative. And I feel like we are kind of coded by proxy to believe in some narrative, that there is the narrative, and actually we're all living our own narratives all the time. So what we choose to step into is really important. And I've unfortunately, or I think there's a lot of other people's narratives that Black and Afro diasporic people have to carry, so much of it. And I think we're all doing that. But it's unhelpful. And the more space and freedom people have to be themselves without worrying about someone else's narrative, the better things will be.
Thank you for listening. You can connect to us and our guests via the links in each episode's show notes. Before you go, we invite you to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the goodness to come. And if you enjoyed today, perhaps tell a friend to tell a friend. We are always grateful for you, our listeners, for our fabulous guests, and to everyone who has contributed to and been a part of our journey here.
Our music is by Tomo Carter. Everything else is brought to you by us, the PowerUp Power Team.
I'm Mesma.
I am Amma Rouge. And we are PowerUp Podcast.